Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists. My name is Kyle.
And my name is James.
And we're here to talk movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so. James, take two was much better.
Sure. Welcome to the podcast. We're recording this a little early. By saying that, I'm talking to the Patreon listeners because they get episodes as soon as we record them, basically. But yeah, we're banking episodes because it's summer and we're on vacations.
And the people want content.
Right. So we're making sure they get content.
Right. Here you go, you needers of content.
Is that what you consider this? We just make content? Is that what that is? Is that what we're doing here?
I'm a content creator.
You really are, Kyle.
I really am.
You're a YouTuber.
According to my son, I'm a YouTuber.
I mean, technically you are. You're on YouTube. Once a week,
on YouTube.
You post a video on YouTube.
Well, I don't post the video on YouTube. I have given you my...
You participate in a video that's posted to YouTube.
Correct. But I don't know. I feel like a YouTuber is a certain personality and presentation.
Yeah, you're like a classic YouTuber.
Like before YouTube.
No, you're exactly what a YouTuber looks like.
No, but you know what I mean. Like you know how people make the YouTube style video.
Sure.
We're not those kind of personalities.
Sure, I guess not. Yeah, I mean, if we were, we'd probably be far more popular.
We'd have
YouTube.
Way more. Hey, we'd have way more subscribers, but
for sure.
We don't do this for the masses. We do this for the fans.
Ourselves? Oh, okay.
Well, and for ourselves. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. As long as I'm having fun, I'm still doing this.
Yep. Same here.
And as long as you guys are here too. It'd be weird if it's just me. So. Plus, I don't know how to post YouTube or edit or anything. So it'd just be recording myself and then sit on my hard drive.
I'm sure you could figure out how to post to YouTube. Like I can
figure out how to post to YouTube and maybe do rudimentary editing.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Welcome to the podcast, Kyle.
Oh, thank you.
I'm excited. We get to do a top 10 last 10.
Yeah. Do you know how long it's been? And this is not like I don't have the answer to this. I'm honestly curious to know when's the last time we did the top 10 last 10. I feel like it's been a while.
When is that? Yeah, it's probably been a while. Oh, man.
Oh, man, that's such a slow pitch to you.
I know. Well, I didn't know you were slow pitching me, but here we go. I hit the right one, just the wrong spot.
That was perfect comedic timing.
Yeah, it's probably been 2 months since you and I did this last. The big question is, when's the last time Zach did it?
It's probably been over a year.
I don't think in 2023 he's done one.
And it could have been beginning of 2022.
Yeah, maybe.
It's been a while. It's been.
And it's been.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah. So it's been a while, but
has it been a while?
It's been a while.
And it's been.
But we're gonna do it again because this is probably one of my favorite things to do on the podcast, which is a top 10 last 10.
Yes.
Because we get to talk about movies that normally would not come up for the most part.
No, no movie of the week, no movie list related to movie of the week. These are just 10 organically watched movies that are ranked against each other.
Exactly. Are you ready to jump into it?
Yeah, I like this because these are all movies we chose to watch.
Oh, you chose yours?
Well, I mean, as in, I didn't watch any of these for a podcast episode.
Sure.
I chose to watch all of these.
I was happy to see that, like, so I've watched far more than 10 since the last time we did this.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
I went on a jag where I just had Netflix on and it was mainlining World War II movies to me. And just whatever came up next, I watched, no matter what it was, no matter how garbagey or good it was.
Okay.
I just watched it. And then when you asked if I wanted to do a top 10 last 10, I was like, man, it's going to be like all World War II movies. And then I realized, actually, all of those aged out. None of them are on my list.
Oh, okay. Really quick, what was the best and worst that were given to you via algorithm? And don't say like if Saving Private Ryan came up, that doesn't count. Like,
Sure.
what was like a good one that you're like you had never heard of and it was surprisingly good, and what was just a god awful one?
Blood and Gold was pretty good.
Blood and Gold. Okay.
Yeah, it in the description on Netflix it said it was Tarantino-esque, which is normally a red flag for me.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
that means it's not going to be good. But it turned out that certainly not as good as a Tarantino World War II movie, but I did enjoy it.
And that's a 2023 movie, it looks like.
Yes, relatively new.
Starring people I've never heard of.
Right. It's not even in English, I don't think. It's been a while.
Ah, okay.
And it's been a
So let me see. And the one that I would not recommend, actually I didn't see too many that were like really bad. Like irredeemably bad type of thing. Let's see. A Call to Spy is the lowest. No, Operation Mincemeat.
Oh, okay. Which was kind of a mainstream movie. Like that starred real people. Like wasn't Colin Firth in that one? It's terrible. Sorry.
Yes. Operation Mincemeat is like about the starting of like MI6, or it's about British intelligence officers and stuff like that. And it also has whoever the author of the James Bond books was.
Ian Fleming.
Yeah, Ian Fleming. Like there's a character that's supposedly Ian Fleming.
Okay.
And supposedly he used like his experience in British intelligence to like write those books. I don't know how much reality there is to that, but that's like a weird side story inside this movie, Operation Mincemeat.
That Ian Fleming is also in it. Okay.
Right.
Isn't Operation Mincemeat the plan to trick the German army into thinking that D-Day was happening somewhere else?
Yes.
Okay, right. It involved a cadaver and fake plans and a parachute drop and everything. I've studied Operation Mincemeat and I was intrigued by the movie because I think it's a very interesting story. But my impression is the movie was not very good, and sounds like that's the case.
Yeah, I didn't like it. My Letterboxd review is, I'm told this is a mostly true telling. Too bad it was boring.
Oh, they need to blackberry it up then, didn't they?
Yeah, I was just super bored by it. Now, when you watch like 7 World War II movies in a row, maybe the one about espionage ends up being boring compared to like the battle scene ones and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Maybe it's unfair to just kind of, watch a bunch of them in a row and then say the one that's boring is the spy movie. But that's my experience with it. So, although I watched another spy movie called A Call to Spy, which was about female British agents, and evidently World War II was like the first time that was a thing. Like, you would allow a woman to be a spy behind enemy lines type of thing, and that one wasn't bad.
Okay.
And it was in the same mix of movies. So anyway, you ready to jump into this top 10 last 10?
I am so ready to jump into this top 10 last 10.
top 10, top 10, top 10, last 10, last 10, and a last 10, last 10, and top 10, top 10, and top 10, and top 10, last 10, last 10, and last 10, and last 10, and top 10.
All right, I'm ready as well. Do you want to give a description of what a top 10 last 10 is?
Sure. Yes. A top 10 last 10 is a movie list where we take the last 10 movies we watched and rank them against each other from worst to best.
Exactly. In other words,
let's rank some movies.
Let's do it.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Do you want to go first or you want me to?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
Since I'm so excited to rank some movies.
You obviously are.
I will say that on my whole list, I liked or was neutral towards these movies. So I had no stinkers on here.
Okay.
And I maybe because I pick movies that I want to watch. I'm not sure why, but there's no low ratings or super low ratings on this one. But my number 10 is a movie I was kind of neutral on. And this is a 2020 movie called The One and Only Ivan. This movie stars Bryan Cranston, as well as the voice talents of Sam Rockwell, Angelina Jolie, Danny DeVito, Helen Mirren, and Brooklyn Prince. Do you recognize that name?
Yeah, from Florida something.
Florida Project, correct. Yep. So this is a movie that is based partially on a true story about a gorilla that lives in a mall and performs in the mall. And Bryan Cranston is sort of the master of ceremonies, the human ringleader of this mall circus with these performing animals, including a gorilla. There's a elephant. I think there's like a hamster that rides a tricycle or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, It's CG animals, like and these are animals that talk to each other, and these are animals that have human intelligence. So in this case, these animals are aware that they're performers. They are aware of what they're doing, but they eventually realize that there's a bigger world out there, and they'd rather be in the bigger world than trapped inside of a mall doing performances. And like as a family movie, this movie was totally fine. And then at the very end, they tell you the true story that this was based on.
Mm-hmm.
And the true story is so much sadder that it kind of made the rest of the movie feel pointless. Like there's actually a rather dark story that's happening here. And here's this lighthearted kids movie about like talking animals that just want to put on a good show.
Sure.
So I think once I learned the true story, which the movie gave you, this isn't from like Wikipedia searching, it gives you it all at the very end. And you realize like this gorilla was taken from the wild, raised by humans, as wild animals tend to do, got to be too big to like live with humans. So then it was stuck in a mall zoo for 30 years until it was eventually freed, put in a real zoo, and then couldn't socialize because it had never been around other animals before.
Crazy. It looks fun though.
Yeah,
it's from the poster and stuff anyway.
The CG animals are done really well. Like it's impressive. Bryan Cranston is, he's giving it his all. It's not a bad movie, and I think if they had not included the actual story at the end, I would have bumped this a half star higher. But just knowing how much more depressing the real story was, maybe sour on the movie just slightly.
All right.
But for kids, my son liked it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So it was a PG and a good PG.
Yes. There is really nothing scary
at all
or anything like that going on.
Sure.
It's a soft PG.
Cool.
It's no Jaws. Jaws is a hard PG. So.
Well, you didn't hate any of your movies, but I definitely did.
I want some hate. Throw some hate at me.
All right. My number 10, the movie that I disliked the most out of the last 10 I watched, is from 2023. It's the rare 1 star for me.
Oh.
That I gave to Hypnotic.
Oh, this is the Ben Affleck movie.
Yes. Ben Affleck, Alice Braga, Jackie Earle Haley, and William Fichtner.
This is on my watch list.
It was brutal.
Okay, that's good. So maybe I need to take it off the watch list.
It was brutal. I mean, I was curious about it because those are named people,
right?
You know what I mean? Like, just the idea that you get a Ben Affleck in your movie is like enough for me to at least, search out a trailer or something or read a plot synopsis. Then you add that it's directed by Robert Rodriguez,
real director, yeah,
real director. Last movie he made was Alita: Battle Angel, which I liked. Didn't do very well at the box office, but most people that see it like it. So, and he can make action movies that I enjoy. So I was into it and watched it. And I mean, it's just the most base level moronic thriller material. You know what I mean? It was just so... Oh, it was so personalityless, basically, in every way possible. From the plot itself was not only it's not necessarily not unique. Not how many, I don't know how many knots that were. It had some unique elements.
Go for that double negative again. It's not unique.
It had some unique elements. It's just so boringly presented that it doesn't matter if it was the most unique thing you'd ever seen in a movie. The way they presented it, it was just like, why are we doing this type of thing? And that's kind of just how I felt watching the entire movie. It's just like, who decided this was a good idea to make this? Or like, how do you get this many people who have shown themselves to be talented together, and then they make something that just feels so uninspired from one side to the other? Just feels like everybody is going through the motions. Yeah, it's a shame because everybody I mentioned by name, I'm into.
Yeah.
Could totally rattle off things that I, would put in a love category for all of them. Maybe not Alice Braga. I'd have to really think about that one. What else that person is in. But as far as Robert Rodriguez and Ben Affleck, William Fichtner, even Jackie Earle Haley, all in things that I love, and yet all together here in 2023, they made a really boring thriller. My number 10.
I am taking that off the watch list as we speak. Off.
All right.
Bam. Cut throat on this one. All right. My number 9 is a 2012 movie called Diary of a Wimpy Kid: Dog Days.
Okay.
This stars no one you know except for Steve Zahn, who plays the dad of this kid, and then maybe Rachel Harris, who plays the mother.
Is this the first one or the second one?
This is the third one.
Third one. I've seen one of them.
So my son is really into Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Sure.
He's 7. He loves reading. He reads these books. He gets the books on tape from the library. So if he's not reading one of these books in his room, he is in his room playing Legos, listening to Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Or he's watching one of the movies, he gets from the library. He just wants all things Diary of a Wimpy Kid right now, which is awesome. I love it. And I'll admit, this is not the first one that I've seen, but this is the first one I sat all the way through, because he's watched a couple other ones also. And like, I've been in the same room, kind of in and out, and he's been enjoying them. And that's fine. But this one, it was movie night, and he got to choose. And he chose Dog Days, and we sat down and we watched it. And even though this movie is not for me, it's definitely like for him and, young elementary school age kids, maybe young middle school kids. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, it's not a bad movie per se. So
not particularly good either.
No, it's not good, but it's not bad. Like, I was never bored by the movie. Sure. I was never blown away, but like, there were some actual moments where I laughed. Steve Zahn is doing his best like dad phase, which I liked. Plot wise, it takes place during the summer, I think between 6th and 7th grade, and it's about the kid Greg Heffley trying to survive summer with his friends and at the pool, and it's whatever. It's kind of episodic as a movie.
Sure.
But I had no issue sitting down and watching it. I don't need to watch him again.
Okay.
But like, I've definitely seen worse and more offensive kid fare movie wise, and this one was watchable and didn't depress me like the one and only Ivan. So
yeah, my son was into those books as well when he was younger, obviously. And I remember seeing the first one, but I didn't have to go to the end of the other ones after that. I don't know if he aged out at that point or what.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, because it seems like they filmed a bunch in like the 2010, 2011, probably when the actors were, not quite going through puberty yet. So they could just bam, 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 crank them out.
Right.
I will say we went to the library tonight and he got the 4th one, and it looks like it's a new kid playing Greg Heffley. So whatever kid was playing Greg probably hit puberty, couldn't be in the movie anymore. So I'm curious to see if like Steve Zahn is back or not. I don't know. Maybe in a future Top 10 Last 10, I'll report back on Diary of a Wimpy Kid episode 4.
Nice. All right. My number 9 is another movie that I do not like, with a 1.5 on Letterboxd. This is Flamin' Hot. from 2023.
The Cheeto movie.
The Cheeto movie. I haven't gotten my fill of like corporate biopics.
Yeah, have we watched like 4? I mean, have you watched 4 of those already this year?
I think I've seen all of them.
Okay.
I don't know how many that is, but pretty sure it's all of them. Yeah, so this was directed by Eva Longoria. Pretty sure it's her first movie, and stars a bunch of people that you probably don't recognize except for maybe, well, Dennis Haysbert and Tony Shalhoub are people you would recognize, but the lead, Jesse Garcia, was new to me anyway. And I mean, I hesitate to say it's fine. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
But it's not. It was just so cringy and eye roll inducingly bad. And I got the feeling that it thought it was cute. And maybe it is for some people, but I was just like, I felt like the life was actively draining from my body while I was watching. It's just like my brain was melting at just how dumb and cheesy the entire thing was. No pun intended.
Yeah, was that a pun?
No, it was not. Yeah, it was clear to me that this was a story that they pulled all the teeth out of. You know what I mean? Like, any kind of actual drama that was there, or actual overcoming of a hardship or anything like that, was just sanitized to the point where it's like you're riding It's a Small World for like an hour and a half.
Oh, you just felt like you're just on the carousel going through the motions.
Right. And there's just they have Disney-fied this to the point where there is nothing left for people who, one, care to know how it really happened, or two, like a little spice on their Cheeto. You know what I mean? Like, this was for a movie about Flamin' Hot Cheetos, this was a normal Cheeto. No spice in this one.
Sounds more like a puff Cheeto to me.
It was like a generic dollar store Cheeto. It wasn't even like a real Cheeto.
Oh, like a cheese yum.
Right. So I reviewed it on Letterboxd, or I logged it on Letterboxd, and then later got an ad for some news article on Google, because they're listening, and it basically is an LA Times article saying that like the movie's full of crap, like everything that's presented in the movie didn't happen anyway.
And
I'm like, well, that makes sense. So somebody, supposedly the guy in the movie, wrote a biography where he claimed that he went from janitor to executive and he created Flamin' Hot Cheetos. And according to this LA Times article, not true.
Never a janitor, just an executive.
Was a janitor.
Oh, okay.
Became an executive, but not because he created a Flamin' Hot Cheeto.
Just because of normal progression of business.
Right. Plus, there's like this origin story about him being like a gangster, or like a California gang member.
Yeah.
And like the way that he used to sell drugs is how they sold Cheetos, Flamin' Hot Cheetos, in the beginning, to convince Cheetos corporate to like mass produce it. And they're like, the LA Times article is like, not true.
It's like, I'm gonna sell these
Never
like crack.
happened. Yeah.
I mean, the thing with like crack though, it kind of sells itself.
Sure. Well, in this movie, that's the kind of what do you call it? Equations? Whatever. They're taking something that's pretty serious, literal LA gangs,
right,
who are selling drugs, and then using them as story devices to spread Cheetos across the neighborhood so that everybody gets interested in it, so that corporate will allow them to mass produce it for the country. And it felt silly in the movie. And then later on, I learned never happened. And I'm like, okay, that's why I understand why this movie sucks. Because somebody wrote it, right, and just made up like weird best case scenario type weirdness that doesn't make any sense. And then someone later took that book and made it into a movie. And this is where we end up at my number 9 and a 1.5. But if you have very little taste in movies and you just want to be entertained and you don't care if you're going to sit down for a biography or whatever and they're going to lie to you for an hour and a half, I guess watch this movie.
All right. It was on my radar, not on my watch list. Probably going to skip that one too. I feel like I've had enough corporate origin stories for 1 year.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
My number 7 is a 2023 movie directed by Guy Ritchie called Operation Fortune: Ruse de Guerre. This is a movie starring Jason Statham and Aubrey Plaza, Josh Hartnett, who the last 2 movies I've seen have been Guy Ritchie movies that he's been in, as well as Hugh Grant, Carrie Elwes, and Bugsy Malone, which I did not know that was a real person's name, but apparently it is. I'm going to be completely honest. I've already forgotten what this movie is about. I watched it maybe a week or 2 ago, and
it says it's a spy action comedy.
Yes. Yes, that's what it is. No, it's Statham plays a like a spy operative on some sort of team, not government sanctioned, just some sort of team. And he needs to infiltrate I think it's a rich producer's home or some rich guy's home, and enlists Josh Hartnett's character, who is a real actor, to play himself, because this Hugh Grant character is so enthralled with celebrities. They enlist Josh Hartnett's actor character to play himself essentially, so they could infiltrate this guy's home to steal something or to learn whatever the plan is. And then Aubrey Plaza's on the team, and she pretends to be Josh Hartnett's character's wife. So she does all the spying around the house while Josh Hartnett does the acting, pretending to be. Well, he is an actor, pretending just to be there for fun.
Man, I gotta see this.
It's a fun movie. I like Guy Ritchie still. Statham, good action star, knows how to fight, knows how to sell a scene. Everyone in the movie's having fun. Josh Hartnett, I kind of wrote him off a decade ago, and he's sort of playing a heightened version of himself. Aubrey Plaza kind of takes the legs out of the misogyny of the whole genre, where she's new to the team, and right away she's like, I'm not going to be the woman on the phone or the woman at the computer, and makes jokes about how the men are so macho and how they, treat the new woman to the team. So she was a lot of fun. Hugh Grant, who in real life seems to hate acting, but for whatever reason actually does a good job as an actor.
You think Hugh Grant hates acting?
I think Hugh Grant acts so he can sustain a lifestyle.
I don't know. I mean, you watched Paddington 2. Did that guy seem like he hates being in movies?
But see, that's the thing is,
I think he was eating that movie up. I think he loved every minute of being in that movie.
Then maybe he just hates talking about movies.
Could be.
Maybe he likes making the movies and then doesn't want to actually talk about it afterwards. Anyway, everyone in this movie is having fun. So I found it a fun, if forgettable, watch. Obviously, I can't tell you anything about the plot anyway. It has to do with tech bros and controlling money, and who cares? That's not why you watch it.
I'll watch it for the cast. The cast looks good, and even if it's not a good movie, I'll get to check another one off my Aubrey Plaza list.
Yeah, she's definitely the best part of the movie, and they set it up for this could be a team. There could be more Operation Fortunes in the future. If I'm not sure how this movie did budget-wise or box office.
I never even heard of it, so I doubt that's going to happen.
Probably not. But I mean, when's the last big Guy Ritchie movie? Was it Aladdin?
He had another one too.
Or didn't he do King Arthur or something?
He did Wrath of Man.
That was terrible. I did not like that movie at all.
That was a bank heist movie.
Yeah, that was like a
The
poor
Gentleman?
man's Heat. Oh, The Gentleman. Yeah, that I liked. I don't think you like The Gentleman, but I like The Gentleman a lot.
Yeah, I don't remember much about it, but which probably means I didn't love it. It's been a while since I've seen a good Guy Ritchie movie.
Oh, I haven't seen I like The Gentleman, but before that, it wasn't since like Snatch or something like that I saw a good Guy Ritchie movie.
Snatch, which was 23 years ago.
Only?
It's been a long time since Snatch.
Would you say it's been a while?
It's been a long time. All right. My number 8 is another movie from 2023. The new movies are not doing well on my top 10 list. My top 10 last 10 list. This is Unseen, which is a horror movie. This is a horror movie.
Okay.
It's another movie that's a directorial debut. This one from Yoko Okumura.
Sure.
It doesn't star anybody that you would recognize, but essentially the plot is this girl is kidnapped by her ex-boyfriend, and he's got her like out in the middle of the woods, and he's going to kill her. Somehow she loses her glasses, and she's like virtually blind without her glasses, but she manages to get her phone from the boyfriend and escape into the woods. She calls her other friend who's working at a convenience store, and they FaceTime each other. Okay. And so she holds the phone out so that the friend can see for her, because she literally like can't see like 3 feet in front of her.
Okay.
So she's being chased through the woods with her friend talking her through escaping her crazy boyfriend. And the tone of this movie is all over the place. It's like a little fun and wacky, but also wants to be a horror movie. So there are moments where it gets a little gory, a little scary, a little suspenseful. So the tone didn't really work for me. And probably the way I described the storytelling convention of like the phones and the FaceTime probably sounds really lame. And I agree.
Right.
The way I described it is really lame. And like on paper, it's really lame. But for some reason, it kind of worked while I was watching it. Like as stupid as it felt watching it, it also kind of worked. So as I was reluctantly on board, and then as the movie went along, it never really fired on all cylinders, but I respected the attempt. At like kind of a found footagey first person movie-ish type of thing, but
right,
also not
through FaceTime. Yeah.
Right. It was through FaceTime, and like it would jump between normal movie like perspective, where you're getting the perspective of whoever's behind the camera, and it would jump from that to like the actual camera on the phone, back and forth type of thing, like narrative versus first person, back and forth. And yeah, like I said, not a great movie, not one that I'd recommend to a bunch of people, but I respected the attempt and could see the creativity. Like, I never need to see this again. I probably wouldn't even stump for it, but if whatever Yoko Okamura directed next looked interesting, I'd watch it.
And you said that she couldn't see because she lost her glasses, or is there something else going on?
She lost her glasses.
All right. So as a glasses wearer, if I was to lose my glasses, if I had to read to save my life, I would be in trouble. But I think I could navigate woods without glasses on.
Like I said, it felt silly to me.
Right.
You'd have to call your friend, and your friend's literally like telling you how many paces away a tree is.
Right.
Or something like that. But that's what they were doing in the movie.
Okay, fair.
So, although the other day I was somewhere and I had to read a menu from a distance, like at a fast food place. And for some reason, I didn't have my glasses on and I couldn't read the menu.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the first time in my life. I think I need to go get my eyes looked at again.
If you get me in a low-lit restaurant with a menu, I'm maybe pulling that phone out for that flashlight. It's bad.
Nice.
It's just happening. Time marches on, James.
I know.
Can't
stop it.
Are we at number 6?
We're on number 8.
Number 7. That was your number 8. So my number 7
Right.
is a 2004 movie directed by Keenan Ivory Wayans called White Chicks.
Okay.
This movie stars Sean Wayans and Marlon Wayans, as well as some other people I mentioned later. And this is, I guess this is kind of an infamous movie where Sean and Marlon Wayans go dress as 2 white women, essentially. That's all I really knew about it. But for whatever reason, this movie re-entered my orbit, and I was like, why should I just watch it? Like, it seemed like a trashy movie from when I was in college. Like the 2000s weren't probably the best era for movies, especially comedies. But I'm like, why not check it out? And I was surprised by 2 things. One, how funny this movie was. It was quite funny. But also how toothless it was about having 2 black men dressed as white women. And the fact that there were so few racial-based jokes throughout this movie. It's way more are jokes about like white socialites and the Hamptons and just women in general.
Then like what? Like white privilege type jokes?
Then white privilege type jokes, yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like I feel like if this movie was made now, it'd be much more of a white privilege satire than it was in 2004. This movie is also, what surprised me, a remake of Some Like It Hot.
Okay.
I guess I should explain the plot to this movie.
Sure.
So Marlon Damon Wayans play 2 FBI agents who need to escort 2 socialites, like Paris Hilton types, to the Hamptons under their protection. For whatever reason, the women refuse to go, and they don't want to botch this job because they've already botched a previous job. So they decide to instead go in whiteface as the actual socialites and pose as them in the Hamptons. And immediately their friends don't even notice. Like their friends are played by Busy Phillips and Jennifer Carpenter, who's Dexter's sister from Dexter.
Sure.
And like right away, there's like, oh, you're here. And like they hang out with them, and no one even notices that like these 2 women are 6 feet tall and like look nothing like the actual people. And then Terry Crews plays, I believe, a football player who falls in love with Marlon Wayans' character. So he's trying to like hit on him and get with him the entire time. And obviously Marlon Wayans is not a woman, but a man trying to keep him away, which is very Some Like It Hot.
Sure.
I found it funny and did not think this was going to be a Billy Wilder remake, but here we are.
So Some Like It Hot is like, it's about like a man who dresses like a woman.
Oh, you know what Some Like It Hot's about?
I've never seen it. I've never seen this or Some Like It Hot.
Some Like It Hot is Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis play musicians who are on the run from gangsters. They witness a hit or something like that. So they need to get out of town. And the only job they can get is on an all-female band that's going to some island. So they dress as women. They join the band. And then the leader of the band is played by Marilyn Monroe. And Tony Curtis immediately falls in love with her. Sugar something's her name. Sugar Cane or something like that.
But he can't do anything about it because he's posing as a woman.
Right. So then he starts playing as a man, another socialite. Like I think he plays like John Dow or something like that, like Dow Chemical. So he pretends to be a rich guy as a man to woo Marilyn Monroe while also playing like her best friend in the group.
Sure.
And then Jack Lemmon is kind of the wingman and is tasked with having to woo this actual rich guy who falls in love with Jack Lemmon as a woman. So it's if you like Mrs. Doubtfire, it's very much in that vein of comedy.
Okay.
Yeah, I would recommend Some Like It Hot. It's a 5-star movie for me. Top 100 movie for me. I think it's very funny. White Chicks does not get to the level of comedy or like Some Like It Hot has much more commentary on like men being or the female experience, I guess you could say. And this one I think could have more commentary on the black versus white experience, but never goes there. Still a fun watch though.
Cool. This totally seems like a movie I will eventually watch. on like some Saturday afternoon when I just want to watch something garbage.
That's
that might
totally
be
how I
funny.
watch it. It was like Saturday, my wife and son were gone. I'm like, well, I guess I'll watch White Chicks.
Sure.
What's the worst that can happen?
Absolutely. You're just in the mood for like some early to mid 2000s dumb comedy that you've never seen.
Right. Like my expectations were so low that I'm like, it can only go up from here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Speaking of low expectations, my number 7 is from 2013. I didn't have high expectations for this one,
Okay.
but it was fine. We're talking 2.5 on Letterboxd. It's Hours. Not The Hours, just Hours from 2013. This is
Hours.
a Paul Walker movie.
Oh.
One of the few movies released after his death. Which was like 10 years ago now. Doesn't that seem crazy?
He died in 2011, 12, 13, somewhere around there, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. And this is like a Paul Walker movie, like through and through. Like he's almost the only person in the whole movie,
Okay.
which is pretty wild. And the movie has an interesting setting. So this guy, it's Katrina in oh gosh, where was
Louisiana? New
Louisiana,
Orleans?
right? New Orleans. That's what I
Okay.
was looking for. For some reason, I couldn't think of the word or the city, New Orleans. So he's in New Orleans. His wife is pregnant, and Katrina's happening.
Wow.
Right, the hurricane, and his wife is giving birth. So he goes to the hospital, and his wife dies in childbirth while the hurricane is hitting. All right, and they're essentially like, "Hey, your wife died, but we're evacuating." And the baby was born.
Oh.
And so we're going to be moving patients to a completely different hospital because this is before like the flooding happened and stuff like that. They're like, we're going to move the patients and then we'll move you last because your baby was like born early and had to be on a breather or something like that. So he's like, right. He's like, fine. Then they evacuate and forget him and the daughter. Okay. And then the power goes out. And so he has to figure out how to get the breather back on because his baby's going to die. Meanwhile, he's like grieving his wife and stuff like that. And he figures out a way to like hand crank this power bank so that like that keeps the breather going for like a couple more minutes every time he does like a hand crank. And so like one day turns into 2, turns into 3, and like there's still no power, and now there's like looting happening because he's like in downtown New Orleans type of thing. And people start looting the hospital, and he's like protecting his daughter from looters and stuff like that. And it's a pretty wild movie. Like, as Katrina movies go, I kind of understand why this movie was probably buried. Probably because it's the first narrative film I've ever seen about Katrina. And it's about a white guy.
Right. Yeah.
Like surviving the storm. You know what I mean? And like saving his white daughter.
Yeah.
And that's really not what people think about when they think about Katrina.
No, they don't think of all the poor white people.
For sure. So I don't know if that's part of the reason why this movie is generally buried. It could be that Paul Walker is Paul Walker in it, and he's not particularly like stellar or anything. It's like watching Brian from Fast and Furious in this weird alternate reality where he lives in New Orleans. You know what I mean? And Mia died, and now he has to keep the rebreather on for their child. Like, he basically just plays the same person he plays in every movie.
Right. Yeah.
Which is also weird because it's like, what is this California bro doing in New Orleans? Like,
right. He doesn't have like an accent or anything. Or
right. No attempt at like localizing him at all. Basically.
I doubt Paul Walker could do accents.
Right. The poster, if you look at it, kind of makes it look like an action film. There is almost no action in it. It's mostly him in a dark hospital room because the power's out, regretting things he's done in his life in like a series of flashbacks with his wife and stuff like that. and every now and then getting up and hand cranking the power on the rebreather on for his daughter. Like occasionally other things happen, but the vast majority of the movie is that. So anyway, didn't hate it, but would not recommend it to anybody unless they just want to watch a Paul Walker movie, which was pretty much my whole motivation. I was like, after we reviewed Fast X, I was like, I remember we talked about how much Paul Walker has missed from those movies.
In that franchise, yeah.
And I was like, I wonder if I've seen every Paul Walker movie. And I went to his filmography and I hadn't. And this was like one of the ones where I was like, okay, this story at least sounds interesting. And so that's why I watched it.
I have questions about the respiratory device.
Okay. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know if I can answer it.
I'm an engineer for anesthesia respiratory care, so that's why.
Sure. No, well,
was the baby intubated?
I think it was early, so it's in like one of those things.
It's in the NICU chamber. Okay.
Right. And there's like oxygen being pumped into it or something. Like clean oxygen or something.
I've got questions. Okay. But maybe I'll just watch the movie for myself and see how feasible this whole hand crank delivering oxygen to this baby situation is.
If you watch it with the one objective of like, I want to see Paul Walker do his thing.
Right.
Despite the fact that his thing is the same thing, no matter what he's in. If that's your objective, you could absolutely watch this and get something out of it. Because that's what it is. 2 hours of Paul Walker doing his thing and a thing that you'd never seen him do his thing in.
All right.
That being said, it's kind of an average movie.
Meh. Well, if there's a respirator involved, I'm interested.
Okay. Weird fetish you got there, buddy.
It's not it's a professional curiosity.
Sure it is.
All right. My number 6 is a 1934 silent French movie called L'Atlante, which translates to Atlanta.
Okay.
This is directed by Jean Vigo, who did not direct a ton of movies. Actually got this from DVD.com, Netflix, one of my last before they go out of business. And they sent me the Criterion disc, which had like 4 of his movies on it. Like one was the feature and the other 3 were shorts. So I didn't include any of the shorts on it, but I think I've seen all of his filmography now, if not most of it, thanks to this one Criterion that I got through the mail. So thank you, Netflix DVD service. Anyway, this is a feature-length movie. This is a movie about a young couple that is newlywed. The husband in this couple, he operates a canal barge, and he lives on the barge. So his new wife comes to live on the barge with him, and it's just him, his wife, and then like this surly shipmate, the second mate. The 3 of them live on this barge together. And visually, this movie was super interesting because I'm sure, James, when you think of like a 1930s silent film, you're probably thinking like the camera just sits in the front of people and there's action and then subtitles and action, etc. And in this movie, the camera was placed in places I would not expect for this era whatsoever. Like a lot of this is shot either on a set of this tiny barge or like on location of these canals. So visually it was a lot more interesting to look at than I was expecting. There was camera techniques being used that I would not expect to see for like 30 or 40 years. So this movie, directorial wise, felt very ahead of its time. Story wise, it was interesting at first, as you have this couple which had a short courtship, which kind of jumped into marriage together. They're living in a cramped space. She's adjusting to the fact that she lives on a barge with her husband, another guy. He's adjusting to the fact that now there's a woman on the barge, and how do we get along? And it's kind of becomes a romantic drama where they start to maybe question if they made the right decision in getting married. And it gets a little melodramatic where she leaves the barge to go into the city, and then he thinks that she has ran away with another man and is looking for her. And it kind of lost me story-wise at that point because it felt a little contrived. So although the movie felt ahead of its time, cinematography-wise for the era, story-wise, it was fine.
Nice. Looks like it's on YouTube right now too,
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be
for free.
how long? It's not even 90 minutes. 89 minutes. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's not even an hour and a half, James.
Will you recommend me to watch this, or do you think it's a waste of my time?
I think if you want to see what a not boringly shot silent film looks like, this is a good one to watch.
Okay.
I think there's other better silent films, but
Mhm.
you're not going to hate this one.
What
I
year
think
was
story
sound?
wise, you might be.
What year was sound?
Great question. That seems like a Zach question.
I feel like it was the
Oh,
20s.
Yeah,
late
Jazz
20s,
Singer
wasn't it?
was 20 something.
27, I think,
Yeah,
possibly.
but
How come they didn't have sound by then?
it's
The French.
expensive.
They're behind.
Yeah, I don't know. He wanted John Vigo wanted to make the films he wanted to make.
Sure.
I don't need no sound to tell no stinking story.
Is that what he said?
I don't know. It was in French, so he's like, "Je n'ai pas un." No, I can't. My French is terrible. I used to know
Sure.
French, but that part of the brain is forgotten it.
All right, I'm into it. I don't know if I'll watch it, but I'm into it.
I think there's other silent films for the era you should watch first.
Okay. My number 6 is not a silent film. Came out in 2002, and it's called The Four Feathers.
Okay.
And I guess I was on like the Dead Guy tour or something like that, because I watched this one because it was a movie with Heath Ledger in it that I'd never seen.
Yeah.
So I didn't consciously do that, but for some reason, I think that was pretty much the motivation for me watching Hours, and it was also the motivation for me watching The Four Feathers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this movie stars Heath Ledger, Wes Bentley, Kate Hudson, Djimon Hounsou, Michael Sheen, others. It's about like these four guys who are in the military for the British military, I think it is.
Okay.
Let's see. Yes. He's in the British military, and they're about to be sent to the Sudan, and basically
the country of Sudan.
The country of Sudan
Okay.
to basically go to war, essentially. And so it's set in the early 1900s or late 1800s, something like that. And so there's these four young guys that have never been to war, but they've been officers. And so when it comes time to go to war, one of them says, actually, now that I'm faced with the reality of going to war, I've decided that I don't want to be in the military anymore.
Okay.
And that, of course, is the Heath Ledger character. And so his three buddies are like, "What's up, coward?" type of thing. And they're not very nice to him. And then they go off to war. And he has a little bit of a guilty conscience about this, right? And he's like broken up with, but his girlfriend breaks up with him. His girlfriend being the one played by Kate Hudson. And then he decides, well, I didn't want to go to war because I don't want to kill people, but I also don't want my friends to die. So I'm going to go to where they are. I'm going to try to save them. And so that's what he does. And that's what the movie's about.
Okay.
It's like he goes to save them. And then in the end, it's kind of a, what's that movie directed by Mel Gibson? Buzzsaw Ridge or something like that.
Hacksaw Ridge. Yeah.
Where it's like somebody who's involved with the war and did heroic things, but also like never killed anybody.
Like wanted to be a pacifist, but still participated in the combat.
But like in Hacksaw Ridge, it's like that guy officially abstained from killing people. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like stayed in the military and all that kind of stuff. Whereas in this one, he just kind of like resigns before they leave, and then in shame goes to the battlefield himself and is like, I'm going to make sure whatever I need to do, I'm going to make sure my friends come back, type of thing. And it was all right.
Yeah.
It's a historical war movie / survival movie, and Heath Ledger's pretty good in it. Everybody's pretty okay in it, but it's nothing that like is going to win any awards or is particularly well written or stands out or anything like that. Which is why it's like in the middle of my list and not, not a high mark, I would say, when
Right.
people think of the filmography of Heath Ledger specifically. Just kind of another one of the movies that he made. But you could see that when they were making it, they were aiming for like a prestige movie and probably just never got that kind of coverage on it. So, but I enjoyed it. And again, if you're just looking to fill out your Heath Ledger filmography, this is watchable.
Does Heath Ledger have a third great movie aside from Dark Knight and Brokeback Mountain? Or a third movie that's as well regarded as those two?
Well, I mean, 10 Things I Hate About You is best film material as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yes.
Material.
Okay, so like I know a lot of people, especially of a certain age and era, like that movie. But is that considered a? I don't know if Brokeback Mountain's a classic. Is that considered in the same?
Oh, I think
echelon as
Brokeback
those
Mountain
two?
is considered like, if not now, will be considered an American classic.
Okay,
for sure.
all right.
I mean, it's kind of it's a twist on the cowboy story, a modern twist on a cowboy story that like nobody had the balls to really make until that movie
Ang Lee, right? He made that
came
movie.
out. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple that if you're talking like movies that should probably be put in the Library of Congress, then I think you got Dark Knight and Brokeback Mountain. And that's probably it.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And I mean, in all fairness, he passed away just as his career was really starting to take off from a dramatic standpoint. So
yeah, but I would add 10 Things I Hate About You.
Okay.
I would add The Patriot, I think is good.
That's right. He's in The Patriot.
Knight's Tale is fun. I like Knight's Tale. Monsters Ball. He has a small role in that movie, but it's a great movie. It's dark, kind of depressing. Have you ever
Is
seen
that the Halle Berry
Monsters
and
Ball?
Billy Bob Thornton movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Have you seen that?
No, I confuse that with Monster, the Charlize Theron movie.
Sure. Heath Ledger in the movie is the son of, he's a prison guard, and he is going to be flipping the switch on a guy being put to death, and it weighs on him heavily.
It's a real pathos to that character.
Yeah. You should see Monsters Ball. That's a good movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of movies from like I saw a lot of the bad movies in the 2000s, I feel like.
Sure. He's also good in Lords of Dogtown.
A skateboarding movie?
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
He's kind of like the group leader, so he's not in it a lot because he's, oddly enough, he's the oldest person in Lords of Dogtown. Like the rest of the cast is way younger than he was.
Yeah.
But yeah. So he's got some good ones.
Okay. Maybe I'll check it out if I need to see some more Heath Ledger.
Sure.
My number 5, and this is the last of my, I enjoyed this genre or tier. Before I get into that, I really liked the tier. This is also my last 2023 movie and my last movie from the 21st century. This is Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, which is directed by the kid from Freaks and Geeks.
The kid from Freaks and Geeks?
Yeah. John Francis Daly. Didn't he play like the younger brother in Freaks and Geeks?
I don't remember, but I believe
I want to say he did.
Okay.
You can fact check me on that, but I think the younger brother from Freaks and Geeks is now making movies like Dungeons and Dragons.
All right.
This movie stars Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez, and it takes place in the Dungeons and Dragons world. Chris Pine plays a bard and Michelle Rodriguez a barbarian, and they go on a quest together with some other people who are of varying abilities like sorcerers and whatnot to find an artifact to rescue Chris Pine's daughter from Hugh Grant, another Hugh Grant movie, who is sort of a mayor of a city who is both raising Chris Pine's daughter as his own and kind of keeping her prisoner. Just she is not aware of that. And I like this movie because I played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons in middle school, a little bit into high school. And this movie seemed to hit the tone just right, where it didn't take itself too seriously. It's definitely comedy forward. There are action scenes, especially with Michelle Rodriguez, and they're fun. It also makes a lot of Easter eggs and references to the world of Dungeons and Dragons, but it never like puts a pin on it or points them out. Like things are just there. And if you're aware of what they are because you're familiar with the material, it's a lot of fun. But at no point does a character say like, oh, that's a mimic, or no one ever points out what's going on. So I appreciated the fact that the movie took fans seriously and says, we don't need to tell you what the Easter eggs are. You can figure them out for yourself. And I had a good time with this movie. I thought it was fun to watch. I liked watching Chris Pine. I liked watching the team all together. I liked watching Hugh Grant be a good actor while hating it at the same time.
See, this is another one where I felt like he was having fun.
Right, exactly. No, I thought he was having a lot of fun with this role too. As sort of, I mean, he's a very obvious villain right away. There's no question about that. They don't try and hide it, and it was just kind of fun for me to live in the Dungeons and Dragons world and remind myself of, oh yeah, here's something I used to do. I don't do it anymore, but I enjoyed back at the time. And it seems like the people who made this movie also enjoyed it too.
Nice. I didn't like it, but we've gone over that.
How much Dungeons and Dragons did you play as a kid?
How much?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how to quantify.
Or like from
I'm
what
not saying
age?
it's a lot, but
Okay.
Not a whole lot. We played GURPS. You know what that is?
Is that like general role playing system or something like that?
Generic universal role playing system.
Okay, that's what yeah. Okay. Yep.
Which is basically like, what if Dungeons and Dragons was cyberpunk and vampire? You know what I mean? Like whatever you wanted, you could like just create campaigns out of, totally different fantasy worlds type of thing. Versus Dungeons and Dragons, which was kind of like Lord of the Rings on paper, role playing game style, which is
correct. Yes,
which is fine. But GURPS provided you, different worlds. But and also GURPS was free in theory.
How would you get? I mean, this is pre-internet, so if it was free, how would you get it?
So you bought the book.
Okay, so you bought something, so it's not free.
Right. By free, I mean like, I don't know. Maybe it was about as free as Dungeons and Dragons was. You bought GURPS and it had like player sheets in it, and then you just photocopied the player sheets. That's all you'd ever need from GURPS.
That's what I did for Dungeons and Dragons. I would just photocopy player sheets. I guess you could buy quests.
Sure.
We would buy quests and then like play those. But that was it. And you could buy the books like the Monster Manual and the Player's Handbook and all that stuff. So there definitely was more to purchase.
Right. And GURPS had the same thing. So maybe it was the exact same formula.
Okay.
But, like if you wanted to play Cyberpunk, you'd buy the Cyberpunk book, and then it would have like, I don't remember it having like missions or, storylines, but I remember it having like pre-made characters you could go against and like weapons with like all the stats and stuff like that. That way you weren't just making it up out of thin air. You were referencing the book to know how powerful things were. Anyway, so I was a GURPS kid. So I don't know enough about, to your point, I don't know enough about Dungeons and Dragons to know like to get enjoyment out of like all the Easter eggs that you're talking about and things like that. So yeah, maybe it's like watching a Sonic the Hedgehog movie, having never played a Sonic the Hedgehog video game.
Right.
But also like, it's medieval adventure. It didn't seem like anything special in that category.
No,
you know what I mean?
If you notice, I barely talk about the plot of this movie because it really is like
Right.
a ragtag group gets together to go on a quest, which is kind of how most Dungeons and Dragons missions went anyway. Like you have this random party of people who are thrown together and try and figure something out. But for me, the movie's not about the plot. It's about the interactions, the fun, and just the Dungeons and Dragon-ness of it all.
Maybe that's the difference, is I don't have enough of a reference to care about that. And so what I was left with was kind of like a limp action movie.
Totally fair. Totally fair. I'm not going
All
to
right.
die on the sword for Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves.
Sure. All right, Kyle, we're halfway there.
Oh, I'm past. I guess this is the official halfway point.
I'm
now.
halfway there.
This would be a great point for you to play some Bon Jovi.
Sure.
You don't have that queued up?
Nope. I don't have it.
Bummer.
How about this?
I can't remember anything.
No, that would be for my Operation Fortune: Ruse de Guerre.
Sure.
Review.
All right. My number 5 is from 1986. It's River's Edge, which I talked a little bit about, I think, on our last episode with the guys from Always a Critic.
Yep.
This is that drama, believe it or not, from 1986, starring Keanu Reeves, Crispin Glover, Dennis Hopper's in this movie. It's pretty wild. Premise is you got these disaffected youths, right? Disaffected? I think that's what they call it. When they're just kind of like, let's go against the man, and like we don't want to be a part of mainstream culture. We're counterculture type of stuff. So there's always like kind of punk kids in the 80s, and they're so disaffected that one of their friends, a guy, chokes out his girlfriend on the edge of the river, literally kills her.
Oh,
okay. And has no reaction to the fact that he did that. You know what I mean? Like he's just like, it's just a thing that happened type of thing. He doesn't seem to feel bad about it or be super upset about it. He's just like, I did it. And that's it. That's the reality of it. And so he tells his friends, played by Keanu Reeves and Crispin Glover, that he did this. And they're like, you did not. And he's like, no, I did. She's dead. She's by the river. And they're like, prove it. And then he takes them to the river, and there's her body. And they're like, holy crap, you actually did it. So Keanu Reeves' reaction is like, I don't know anything about this. I gotta go.
Right.
Crispin Glover's reaction to this is, I gotta help you cover this up. Like, you're my boy. We're friends. And instead of like recognizing this as a thing that his friend did that was wrong, instead of that, he's like, we're boys and I'm going to help you cover it up. And so meanwhile, the rest of the movie takes place. Keanu Reeves has a little brother who like wants to be a part of Keanu Reeves' like punk group of friends. He doesn't quite fit in. And Dennis Hopper plays a drug dealer who won't leave his house because he has like weird Vietnam, PTSD type of thing. And so they like get marijuana from him and stuff like that. And then over the course, like more of their friend group finds out about the murder, and the friends like all react differently to it. Some people are like mortified, and other people are like, she deserved it. Like, there's just all this really weird. The movie is weird because it's all about disaffected youth, and yet none of it is I don't believe any of these characters are real people.
Right. Like, you can't buy
basically. Right. Like if people really did have this attitude, if the youth really did have this attitude in the 80s, then it wasn't an 80s I lived in. That's for sure. And maybe there were spots. Supposedly this is based on a true story, I think, too.
Really?
Of like somebody killed a girl and then his friends tried to help him, cover it up. That's kind of where it begins and ends as far as the true story part. But The director considers it a contemporary horror film.
Okay.
The hard part about this movie, and I mentioned this the last time we talked about it, is that Crispin Glover is just in a totally different movie.
Yeah, you said
else.
he was just kind of out there.
It kind of feels like he's in like a weird slapstick comedy.
Okay.
And I found this video on YouTube that was posted 17 years ago. This has to be the oldest YouTube video I think I've ever seen.
Was YouTube 2004? When did YouTube come out?
I don't know.
2005? Okay.
I thought it was like
17 years ago.
6, but it might have been 2004. That makes
I don't remember, but still 17 years ago is crazy for YouTube.
Right. It's 1 minute and 18 seconds of Crispin Glover in River's Edge. Here we go.
You'd think I'd at least rate a Michelob.
Don't be an ingrate.
You're calling me an ingrate?
I never asked you to do it, Lane.
Friend doesn't have to ask a friend. Do something like that. Oh, it's so warm even. You don't even care, do you?
I ain't drinking it.
About yourself?
So this is him talking to his friend who killed
Right.
the girl.
Yeah.
You dumb f***. How do you expect other people to care about you? It's people like you that are sending this country down the tubes. No sense of pride, no sense of loyalty, no sense of nothing, man. Why do you think there's so many welfare cases in this country? Why do you think it is that Russia's gearing up to kick our asses, man?
Drink your beer, Lane.
No, I won't drink my beer. I'm talking here. These things are...
And also they're driving down the road while they're drinking beers. Anyway,
Is he ad-libbing? Like, is this the script or is he just making something up?
I mean, I read some like statements the director said about it, and he was just basically like that he just couldn't control Crispin Glover. You know what I mean? He just kind of let him do what he was going to do, basically, at some point. Like they had their issues in the beginning, and the only way to get through the movie was to just let him do what he was going to do. So it's a pretty wild movie. If you're into like B movies or cult movies,
Okay.
like strange movies from the 80s, just kind of oddities, that type of stuff, I think it's actually worth seeing. But that's pretty much the only reason to watch this, is to just kind of like see something that's kind of a relic of the time and has been kind of buried because it's not very good, but also has interesting things related to stuff that's still happening today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Keanu Reeves was just in a movie that was #1 at the box office, and here he is playing opposite the guy from the first Back to the Future. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that feels like a long time ago because it was.
It was a long time ago. Yeah.
Right. Anyway, my number 5, River's Edge.
I don't know if I've seen another Crispin Glover movie besides Back to the Future.
Really?
Oh, and then I guess he was in Beowulf, wasn't he? The Robert Zemeckis.
Yes.
Yes.
You never saw Willard?
Is that the one about the rats?
Yep.
Does he play Willard or does he play like the dad or something?
I think he plays Willard.
I might have caught that on TV in college or something like that.
What about Hot Tub Time Machine?
Never seen Hot Tub Time Machine.
Really?
Yeah.
You could totally watch Hot
Should
Tub
I-
Time Machine. Hot Tub Time
should I
Machine is
watch
one
it?
of those surprisingly funny comedies.
Is Craig Robinson in that?
Yes.
Okay, well then I'm gonna watch it now.
You saw Charlie's Angels, the Drew Barrymore Charlie's Angels? No.
I mean, I maybe caught parts of it on TV.
What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
Seen parts of it.
Oh my gosh. Do
Never
you
seen
ever
entirety.
watch a full movie? Hasn't been in it much lately. I think
Yeah,
he
no.
kind of got canceled for something.
Well, I mean, I thought he just was in acting jail because he was so hard to work with.
I think that was true, and also like he, people who have worked on his weird art movies kind of came out
That's too bad.
during the Me Too era, and was like, he's not a great guy.
Okay.
Anyway,
I do watch movies, but you remember like the cable television era. Like there's constant movies on.
oh yeah,
So like I may have caught bits of something here or there, but
Mhm.
never actually sat down and watched them in their entirety because commercials were happening or my friends are going to do something or whatever. So
Hmm.
it's a different time now.
true.
All right. My number 4, and this gets into I like these movies a lot, is a 1953 Japanese movie directed by Kenji Mizoguchi called Ugetsu.
All right.
Ugetsu takes place in Japan during the 16th century. There is a local war going on, and 2 men who are potters, like the clay makers, try to capitalize on the war, on the lack of pottery in the region by trying to make as much pottery as possible and then going to the big city to sell it to make a ton of money. And their wives are not so happy with this plan. Their wives just want them to stay in the town or stay with them where it's safe. And these men really want to take their pottery to the big city and make as much money as they can. One of them just wants to become rich, and the other one really wants to become a samurai, but he cannot become a samurai until he buys his own armor, which he can't afford, hence the need for money.
Hmm.
So these 2 men eventually gets to the city. They sell their pottery. They're making their money. One goes off to pursue his samurai dreams, and the other catches the eye of this mysterious woman named Lady Wakasa. And she invites the man back to her manor where it's just her and her like older handmaiden who's watching over them, or her attendant, whatever you call her. And this man starts to fall in love with this mysterious Lady Wakasa, and have a romantic relationship with her and starts to forget about his other life outside of it. And as a viewer, you start to realize that there's something weird going on with this Lady Wakasa.
Mhm.
You're not quite sure what it is. So this movie is a bit of it's not a horror movie in the sense of like it's not scary, but it's definitely presented as a horror movie at times. It's also presented but a bit as a morality tale. And
Mhm.
I just found it quite fascinating the whole watch through. It's shot in black and white, but it's shot very um very engagingly, I guess is the best way to put it. Like there's this one scene where they're all the men and their wives are trying to go to the city together at first, and they're crossing this eerie fog-laden lake on a boat, and they encounter a man who says, "Oh, there's pirates," and this whole thing is shot like through the fog, and this whole conversation is happening, and it's like one of the most interesting conversational waters that I've seen in a movie.
Mhm.
So just visually, it's very interesting to watch, and then the story was not what I expected, and definitely goes some places. It has a bit of a morality ending to it. It feels like maybe the ending should have been different, but they tried to go for here's the lesson learned from the whole thing. But I still overall really like this movie.
Nice.
I don't
What
think
year-
you
what year was that?
1953.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't think I'd like it?
I think there's other Japanese movies of this era you could watch. Like one that I might have coming up in a couple slots from here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. My number 4 is The Accused from 1988.
This is kind of like a famous movie, isn't it?
It's relatively famous. It feels like a movie I should have seen by now, but I hadn't seen it. It stars Jodie Foster and Kelly McGillis. It's kind of famous because I think Jodie Foster won an Academy Award, right? For Best Actress, I think.
Okay.
Yes. She won an Academy Award for Best Actress. This is the movie about the girl who is in a bar and she gets raped by some of the bar members. And she tries to hold to account her attackers, and people don't really take her seriously because she's a little bit of like a bar flirt, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And because this is the 80s, it's a lot of like, you got what you deserved type of attitude towards her. Meanwhile, Kelly McGillis is a lawyer who is like, no, this shouldn't have happened to you. No matter what, you were doing, you didn't deserve this. And so
Right.
we're going to figure out a way to hold these people accountable. And then, drama happens. So it's mostly them leading up to a court case and then actually having the courtroom scenes of the case, peppered with flashbacks from different perspectives from different people that were there, basically trying to piece together like what the truth is, basically.
Yeah.
And I thought it was good. Not like the best movie. It definitely feels like a drama from 1988. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like it just has a little bit of that stink on it.
Yeah.
But it was fun to see Kelly McGillis in another movie, because really the only ones I associate her with are like Top Gun and Stake Land, which are two very different movies and like 2 decades apart, basically.
You've never seen Witness with Harrison Ford?
I have seen that, but I don't remember her in it.
Oh yeah, she's the like romantic lead of the Amish community.
Okay, I need to rewatch that because I was a kid when I saw that. So
yeah,
I don't really remember much about it. I need to rewatch a bunch of early Harrison Ford movies because I don't really remember Fugitive very well.
Yeah, that's not a movie I saw a long time ago in its entirety.
Right.
Like, but I rented that on VHS back in the day.
Right. Yeah, I remember liking Fugitive, but short of like the sewer scene, in the like hen house, dog house, that speech from Tommy Lee Jones. I don't remember anything about
the whole
movie.
perimeter speech.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I wanted to watch this because it had kind of been on my list. Jodie Foster won an Academy Award for it, and it's kind of legendary as like a movie that goes places. And I think all of that is true. And a hard movie to watch, certainly, about a woman who was, raped by multiple men. But a solid drama, despite the fact that it has a little bit of age to it. My number 4.
I might check this out. I'm interested to see what else Kelly McGillis was doing in this era.
Yeah,
because she definitely, unfortunately, as she aged, her career petered out because she doesn't look how she used to look, and Hollywood doesn't treat women that well. So
yeah, you'll probably get something out of it just for the Jodie Foster-ness of it too.
Okay, yeah,
you know what I mean. Like this is like what's the name of the movie with the serial killer that also has Jodie Foster in it?
Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, this is like Silence of the Lamb era Jodie Foster.
Okay, yeah.
So, or maybe that came right after this.
Silence of the Lambs was early 90s, so within a couple of years of this one.
Yeah, within a couple of years of this one. So this is kind of peak Jodie Foster being everywhere.
I would say peak Jodie Foster would be the 1-2 punch of Contact and Maverick.
Right. But that's all early 90s. So I think this kind of started that snowball.
Okay. That kind of got her.
There's like kid actor Jodie Foster. And then she did this movie. Mm-hmm. And then she turned into like, all of a sudden she's in a Western with Mel Gibson.
This is like her crossover into I guess Taxi Driver was an adult drama movie too, but
for sure.
For her as an adult dramatic actor.
Right.
Yes.
You got it.
I gotcha. Okay. Yeah, she was like 14 in Taxi Driver.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. All right. I forgot to mention, I watched Ugetsu because it was a list movie. It's on a bunch of famous movie lists, and it held up. It's sometimes when I watch a list movie, like Latlant, whatever, that was a list movie also, and it was fine. Right. It was kind of in the middle of my list, but Ugetsu, list movie, lots of famous lists, and I see why it's on all those lists. All right. My
Nice.
number 3 is a cult movie from 1981 that is one of the longest movies that is set on my watch list since I started Letterboxd.
Okay.
And I finally got around to watching it. Care of DVD.com, Netflix DVD. Gonna miss that. And actually watched this last night. This is An American Werewolf in London, directed by John Landis from 1981, starring
Okay.
David Naughton.
So it sat on your queue the longest, not that the runtime was the longest.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, let me apologize. Yes,
Okay.
yes, it sat on my Letterboxd watch list for one of the longest.
I thought you were about to
times.
say Showa or something like that.
No. Showa
like-
is on there.
Then you
but-
broke out An American Werewolf in London. And I was like, I've seen that. It's not that long.
it was like 12 hours. No, but this movie has been on my watch list for a very long time,
Sure.
and I'm happy to finally check it off. Yeah, this is a cult horror movie about 2 American backpackers who are in northern England, and they are on the moors during a full moon, even though they're warned not to be, and they encounter a werewolf, a beast, and this werewolf kills one of the backpackers, played by Griffin Dunn, and then injures the other one, played by David Naughton. And David Naughton is taken back to a hospital where he is being healed. He was told that he was being attacked by a crazed lunatic, which seems like something from like the 70s and 80s, like an escaped mental asylum-y. But he is getting rather gruesome visitations from his dead, maimed friend, warning him that he is a werewolf.
Mhm.
And spoiler alert, he is.
Mhm.
This movie has great early 80s effects. Rick Baker does the effects on these. I mean, the werewolf transformation itself is very famous. If anyone's seen any clip of this, it's probably that transformation where you see a guy's body slowly elongating and a snout growing and like pockets of fur coming out of him. That's great. But there's also like kind of this gleeful violence to this movie.
Mhm.
Like he has that dream sequence where Nazi werewolves murder his family in the living room. Do you remember that?
Mhm. Yeah.
Did not expect that to be happening whatsoever. I thought that was great. Every time his friend visits him, he's more and more decayed. And by the end, he's essentially like a skeleton puppet talking to him in the movie theater. And I thought that was fun. And then there's this final werewolf attack in Piccadilly Circus, which is just mayhem of like cars crashing into people and people getting run over and wolf attacks. And this movie was just so much fun, and kind of its campiness is the best way to put it.
Sure.
Like, I think everyone knew they were not making the next great horror movie, but they were
Right.
making what turned out to be a cult movie, a very well done cult movie, a gory cult movie. And they were smart to show the werewolf as little as possible, because the times you did see the werewolf, it was obviously like a cart with mechanical legs that as the wheels spun behind it. But that's okay, because the movie was shot so well and so much fun that I didn't mind some of the cheesy aspects of it.
I mean, it's a John Landis movie. Like the guy directed Blues Brothers. So it's basically
Right.
Blues Brothers with werewolves.
Right. He directed Thriller. That's the other thing is,
Sure.
like, I've seen Thriller a million times, and that has its own werewolf transformation.
Mhm.
And like Michael Jackson loved American Werewolf in London and just hired the entire team to like shoot Thriller. Like John Landis shot Thriller. Rick
Right.
Baker did the makeup. Like essentially Thriller video is
An extension
American
of
Werewolf
the-
in London light.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen this one in a while either, but there's definitely scenes from this that are burned into my young brain.
Yeah. How young were you when you saw this movie?
I was probably in high school.
Okay.
So, I mean, and I definitely didn't see it in real time. You're talking 1981, so I was 4,
Right.
but maybe 10 years after that I saw it.
Okay. And this was another movie that used to play on cable a lot. So I
Mhm.
definitely recognized clips of this,
Mhm.
not just from like famous YouTube videos, but Like when he's talking to his all torn up friend, I'm like, oh, I've seen this before somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd never sat down and watched it in its entirety. And it's for the best. Knowing what I was like as a kid, if I had seen this movie, Thriller video scared me. And that's like a hard PG.
Sure.
If I'd seen this as a kid, it would have been not good news.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. It's a classic. Have you seen the sequel?
No, I remember it coming out. Because I want to say it was like mid-90s, and I was right at that age where I was like, I can see R-rated movies. And it had the Bush soundtrack.
It had the Bush soundtrack? What do you mean?
Yeah, didn't
Bush
like
was
Bush
on the soundtrack?
Or maybe Bush was on the soundtrack, yeah.
Oh, okay. You think maybe they did the whole soundtrack?
I don't remember. Did they do the whole soundtrack, or did they just have one song from the soundtrack?
I have no clue.
Okay. They're definitely on the soundtrack.
Okay.
All Your Metal Arm. Oh, Mouth. That was the song in the trailer. Mouth by Bush.
Okay.
The whatever the techno remix was, not the original Razorblade Suitcase.
I used to
version.
really like Bush.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. They kind of like, what happened? They kind of had like 2.5 albums and then disappeared.
They had 16 Stone, which was like their breakout.
Right. Then Razorblade Suitcase.
Razorblade Suitcase, which was a weird album, but I kind of like it.
Right.
And then what did they do after that?
I feel like they released another one that I owned.
Okay.
And they maybe had one radio played song, but I never played the album enough to like like it. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like Bush came maybe a couple years too late. Like they were definitely going for that grunge sound, but they were a little bit more produced. Kurt Cobain had already passed away before 16 Stone came out, or it was around the same time. So unfortunately, the sun was kind of setting on that genre.
Yeah. Agreed.
Creed was in the same boat. I think Creed seemed to hang on a little bit longer than Bush.
Oh, I feel like Creed was behind Bush.
Like they came after Bush.
In the timeline.
Yes. Yeah. But they seem to keep it going a little bit longer. Like Bush had 2 albums. I feel like Creed had they made it into the 2000s.
So 16 Stone was 94, Razorblade Suitcase 96.
Okay.
The Science of Things.
I don't remember the Science of
You
Things
remember
at
that
all. What was the song off the Science?
That was 1999.
What was the hit?
Why are you trying to have me edit that? What the heck?
James is currently editing Wikipedia to talk about how great the Science of Things was.
For some reason, I'm on Simple English Wikipedia. Weird. The Science of Things. The Chemicals Between Us.
Oh, Chemicals Between Us. I remember that song. That was also in the movie trailer.
That's what I said. Like the Chemicals Between Us, I think, was a hit, and that was it. That was the only hit they had off that album. And if you listen to the album, the rest of it kind of sucked, except for that song.
Yep.
And even that song's not that great either.
It's not that great. No, it's a little overproduced also.
Yeah. And similar to some of their other songs.
Yep.
So, all right. What are we talking about here?
I think you're on your number 3.
All right. My number 3 is from 2000. This is still in, this is a 3.5 star movie. So we're still not in like 4-star category,
okay.
but
I'm in 4-star territory already. So
nice. But I did enjoy this one. It's called You Can Count on Me from the year 2000.
Okay.
This is Mark Ruffalo's first film.
Oh.
And it's directed and written by Kenneth Lonergan, which, if you recognize that name, you probably recognize it because it's the guy that directed Manchester by the Sea.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I'm seeing right now that he also co-wrote Gangs of New York, which is weird.
Mark Ruffalo did his first movie in 2000.
Yeah.
I thought he would have been like at least doing stuff in the early or the mid, maybe late 90s.
I'm pretty sure this is his first movie.
I believe you. I believe you.
Well, I might be lying. So let's double check.
I don't believe you anymore.
Mark Ruffalo began acting in the 1990s and first gained recognition for his work in Kenneth Lonergan's play, This Is Our Youth, and the drama film, You Can Count on Me.
Okay. So
maybe it might not be his first movie. It's the first one that anybody cared about. Evidently.
Yeah.
Anyway, You Can Count on Me. It stars Laura Linney and Mark Ruffalo and Matthew Broderick and Rory Culkin, amongst others. And it's about this guy, Mark Ruffalo, and his sister, Laura Linney. Their parents had died when they were like early, like really young teenagers. And they were split up by like the foster, orphan type system. I don't know what you'd call that. Adoption type system.
The foster system. Yep.
Right. The foster system. So they kind of grew up separately, but in the same town with like different parents. And so now it's like fast forward and they're both in their 30s, maybe late 20s. And he kind of lives the life of a wanderer. He kind of goes from city to city and has girlfriends and gets into trouble and doesn't have much stability in life. Meanwhile, she stayed in town and works at a bank, has a son, recently got a divorce or something like that, and is kind of like the adult of the two, brother-sister duo. So he comes to town to live with her and help out with some stuff and kind of spends time with his nephew. And drama happens, but that's not really why you should watch this movie. You should just watch it because Laura Linney and Mark Ruffalo are just great actors.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, they're great actors. There's like nothing that I could say plot-wise that would really convince you to watch this movie because it's all about them just being really great actors and reading what's on the page in convincing ways and being charming when they need to be and scary when they need to be and like intense when they need to be. And then you add on like a really good director like Kenneth Lonergan knows how to make adult movies
Right.
for adults, not necessarily adult movies, but movies for adults, and is like considered an actor's director. And since these are two great actors, then I think most people who are into dramas will definitely get something out of this, especially when you're just kind of looking at it and you're like, wow, Mark Ruffalo is the Hulk now. Like nobody watching this movie in the year 2000 would have ever guessed that guy was going to eventually play the Hulk in like the biggest box office movie of all time, essentially. So, I'm glad I saw it. And I was listening to a podcast, and do you know who the comedian Bobby Lee is?
Lee?
From Mad TV.
Oh, yes. I do remember Bobby Lee. Yep.
He is like a big movie guy. And I was listening to a podcast he was on, and they asked him to name like his top 5 movies. And he listed You Can Count on Me as one of them. And I was like, I've never heard of that. I will check it out. And like within a day or two, I did.
Do you ever feel like kind of lame where like people are like, what's your favorite movie? You're like Empire Strikes Back or 2001: Space Odyssey.
100%.
Yeah, like
whenever anybody asks me, I say, it's so boring. And they're
I
like,
know.
why? And I was like, because it's Star Wars. Of course
Right.
it's Star Wars. Like
Yeah.
I was born in 1977. Like there's nobody I know who was born in that age range. Like that year and maybe the next 10 who, well, except for maybe Zach, who don't. It's like a good 75%, I would say, of males our age. You know what I mean?
Oh, because we were just inundated
gap.
with it. It was everywhere.
Right. That wouldn't put one of them at number 1 or at least in like the top 10.
Top
somewhere.
10.
Yeah.
The other crazy thing is we had just those 3. Like there was not this constant influx of Star Wars. It was just, here are the 3 Star Wars movies, and we just watch them over and over again. And like they kept coming out with toys. Like that franchise lived off of just those 3 movies for a good 20 years.
Well, I mean, sometimes I wonder how good they actually are, because there was a weird. So certainly I think they're good, but the movies came out. They're one of the first movies to exist in the VHS era.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you got the toy angle.
Yep.
And so it's kind of a, 1, 2, 3 punch. That like previous movies just never had, essentially.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think I do think they're good, and I think they're fun. I'm definitely attached to them far more as like things that have existed in my life than just mere movies. So I kind of feel like if you could remove everything and just leave the movie, which is in my case impossible, but if you were able to do that lobotomy to my brain, where would it land?
Yeah,
I think it might land in like Jurassic Park area.
Oh, it's like number 3 then?
No. To me, Jurassic Park's like in the 50s,
Okay.
which is still really high.
Still really high, yeah.
But not like, of course it's number 1
right.
high type of thing. So anyway.
But nostalgia plays into favorites for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
With
right.
Empire Strikes Back, it's like beyond nostalgia though.
My number 2 is another Japanese movie. This one's from 1962 and directed by Akira Kurosawa, and this is Sanjuro. This movie stars, of course, who else? Toshiro Mifune, reprising his role from Yojimbo. This is sort of a sequel to Yojimbo in as much as A Few Dollars More is a sequel to A Fistful of Dollars. Right. Clint Eastwood's playing more or less the same character. It's
but they don't
similar
really attach.
Right. Yeah, but there's no direct correlation between 1 and 2. Same for Sanjuro and Yojimbo.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, Toshiro Mifune plays this wandering Ronin samurai who ends up in a town and finds himself in the middle of a feud between 9 samurai who are trying to investigate and overthrow a corrupt bureaucrat in their clan. And so Mifune's character decides to advise these 9 samurai and help them in their mission to overthrow this corrupt bureaucrat. Because these 9 samurai, although their hearts are in the right place, they're not very good at planning or thinking things through.
Mm-hmm.
So he's constantly, correcting their mission, giving them sort of like, well, no, here's some tactical advice. Here's how you should approach this, or here's how we should do this rescue or whatever. And they don't always listen to him. And then when they don't listen to him, he ends up having to kill lots of people, which he is not happy about. Like, he's very good at killing, but he does not like having to do it. So there's several times in the movie where he advises them to do something, they don't listen, he swoops in to save the day, has to kill a bunch of people, needs to explain away why he killed a bunch of people, and then chastise these 9 samurai for not listening to his plan in the first place. This is a very watchable movie. This honestly feels like a 4-quadrant action movie from 1960s Japan. Because there is action, there is spy plotting, there is comedy throughout this movie. Some of the wife of one of the kidnapped bureaucrats gets involved with the group and is like adding comedic elements to the whole movie and how the people are reacting to her. There is mugging to the camera in this movie. Like, this movie really has everything. But is super fun to watch. It also has an ending that had to inspire Quentin Tarantino. Like, just in its unexpected bloodiness of the whole thing. Like, this is not a bloody movie at all, and then has this incredibly bloody ending. And you're like, well, there's no way Tarantino did not watch this movie and said, I want to do that all the time.
What's the name of it again?
Sanjuro. James, you could easily watch this movie.
Okay.
Yeah. It's got everything.
I want to watch all his movies.
Kurosawa?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's a very watchable director. Like,
I've only seen 2.
Which 2 have you seen?
Throne of Blood and 7 Samurai.
Okay, so yeah, I mean,
no,
obviously
3, because I've also seen the one that's like up in a apartment complex. Like the whole thing.
High and Low.
You're right, High and Low.
Okay, so obviously Rashomon. That's like his second most famous one.
Never seen it.
Yeah, that's the one where it's the same story told from 3 different perspectives.
Mhm.
And then for modern ones, I think you could definitely watch Ron, which is I think
Mhm.
it's King Lear, and that's from the 80s. That one's in color. And then Kagamusha, which is a take on I can't remember which. Oh no, this is like the Prince and the Pauper. Like they have a replacement king when the real king dies.
Hmm.
That's also in color. And those ones, I saw those when I was a kid. Those are like cast of thousands, especially Ron. Ron's got huge epic battles between thousands of extras.
I have Ron on Blu-ray. I just haven't watched it.
Oh, you should definitely watch Ron.
All right.
But Ron is more of an epic. It is, how long is that one? It's got to be over 2 hours. Yeah, that's 160 minutes. So it's pushing 3.
Sure.
If you want to not go full epic, Yojimbo, I would go there first, and then Sanjuro. Yojimbo is a fistful of dollars.
Sure.
Right? Like Fistful of Dollars is a direct remake of Yojimbo. And then Sanjuro is very watchable too.
Cool. I'm into it. Maybe we add it to the Georgia list.
Yeah, you get that that iOS Notes app going, and we can put it on there.
No. All right, my number 2 is my first 4-star movie.
Okay.
So, I mean, I certainly like movies that are 3.5, which The Accused, River's Edge, You Can Count on Me. Those all counted in that range. First 4-star is from 2022, although it just came out. So I think technically it's 2023. I think maybe it went to like festivals in 2022. But the name of the movie is I Like Movies. That's literally the name of the movie.
Never heard of this.
I Like Movies. And this
You know
movie
how hard it is to Google that?
This movie is super charming.
Okay.
I would say. It's a Canadian drama, comedy kind of sorts about this kid who is really into movies, right? It's set in the 80s, maybe early 90s. I don't remember exactly. But video stores are still a thing.
Okay.
Like Blockbuster type stuff. And so he's really into movies, and he's about to graduate high school, and he's applied to NYU School of Filmmaking, and he really wants to go to that school. And kind of his mom and like his friend, other people are not convinced that like he's going to get in there because his grades aren't very good, and he's like Canadian. He's like not even American. So so they're like, other people are kind of telling him he needs to have a plan B for life, and he's like, nope, I'm getting into NYU School of Filmmaking, and that's it. He's kind of annoying. He's a nerdy film kid, basically.
Right.
And so he decides that if he gets into NYU, he's gonna have to pay for it, and it costs like $60,000 for a 4-year education, which is actually pretty cheap in today's money. But back then,
it's a lot of money.
Was a lot of money. And so he gets a job at a video store, and it's his first job ever. And there's a manager there who used to be an actress, and he doesn't get involved with her, but like he looks up to her, and maybe has a little bit of like a puppy dog crush on her type of thing. Never gets inappropriate or anything like that. But yeah, he's just, for the first time, he's kind of in this adult world with coworkers and stuff like that. And it's in a place where like he kind of feels like he's in the movie industry because he's working at this movie rental place.
Right.
You know, this is just one step to, you know, becoming a filmmaker, is working in this video rental store. Anyway, I've probably told you far more than you actually need, because
I've got
really
a good idea what it's about.
Really the only reason to watch this movie is one, the performances are pretty great, very natural. The main kid is just you know, he's not doing any deep character work here, but you will absolutely believe he is who he is, and is this kind of annoying film kid. And same thing with all the employees. If you're a little nostalgic for, you know, the video store days, it's worth watching for that. It's got a little bit of like a Kevin Smith quality to it, where it's like a lot of people a lot of clerks standing around discussing movies, stuff like that, or like teenagers discussing movies. And it's also low budget, like those types of movies from the
Right.
90s. It kind of feels like a throwback to movies that were made in the 90s, like these little talky indies.
Mhm.
And the fact that it was made in 2022 but still manages to hit that vibe, I was
Still
impressed
feels like
by.
a 90s indie movie.
Right,
Yeah.
but not in like a bad way. Like in a if the date on this did say 1993, I wouldn't be shocked
Right.
kind of way. Like they hit the vibe as perfect as you can for a movie that's made today for those types of movies. So I like those movies. I miss those movies, and so this filled that spot really well for me. And yeah, it's a good one.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it sounds interesting. I will maybe check it out.
Yeah.
But I do like that era of good 90s independent movies.
This movie on Rotten Tomatoes has 100%.
Oh, of how many reviews?
26.
Okay, it's not shabby.
It's not too bad.
How long is it?
That's according to the Wikipedia. Let's see if it's been updated
Okay.
lately. It's relatively short, I believe. We're looking at 99
minutes. Okay.
It still has a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's totally one of those movies that like you will not be mad at. You know what I mean? You'll just be like, I enjoyed my time with this.
You can't be mad at it. This is too charming.
Right. Exactly.
Awesome.
I like movies works because there is talent all through it. That's one of the quotes. Feels like a tribute to the kind of passion for film which it addresses.
Those are rousing reviews.
I like movies authentically encapsulates the era of video rentals, striking a humorous nerve in suburban cinephilia.
I don't like that word cinephilia. Like I understand the
What
roots
it
of
means.
it. It's just
Sure.
way too close to another word that is cinephilia that is much more
Yeah.
common. So
Absolutely. There was another movie that Zach tried to get me to watch a bunch. I still want to watch it. It was about like this kid who's like way into film and he has a friend who's like dying of cancer.
oh man.
Yeah. And he kept wanting me to watch it. And I was like, I don't want to watch a movie about somebody dying from cancer.
Especially a kid. Yeah. That doesn't sound like
I still want to watch it. By kid, I think it was like a teenage girl, which is
That's still
just
a
still a
child.
kid, but
Yeah.
I'm saying like not like a 8-year-old or something like that.
yeah, that would be even worse.
Anyway,
Man.
the only reason to watch that is because the kid makes like, Kurosawa references in it. You know what I mean? He's like a film nerd. That's
Right.
why Zach liked it because of all the movie references. This is like, this kind of feels like that movie, but without all the cancer.
Now with less cancer.
So anyway, my number 2. I
Awesome.
like movies.
So you told us. We should change the name of the podcast to I Like Movies.
Sure. I mean, people would misunderstand it a lot less.
I told a coworker today, I came up and they're like, "Oh, you're on a podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah." They go, "What's it called?" They go, "Cinereelists." Like, what? Like,
Right. And then
doesn't
you
that
had to
roll right
explain
off the
it.
tongue?
It does
me-
for me, but maybe that's just because I've said it a million
We've been doing
times.
this for 580 odd episodes.
Right.
So, yeah. All right.
All right.
You ready for my number 1?
Never been more ready.
I am. Buckle your seatbelts, James.
All right.
This is going to blow you away.
I'm ready.
My number 1 is a 1945 romance movie called Brief Encounter.
Okay.
Directed by David Lean, who you may know from other famous movies such as Lawrence of Arabia,
Never seen it.
The Bridge Over the River Kwai,
Never seen it.
Dr. Zhivago,
Never seen it.
Great Expectations.
Never seen it.
You've heard of these movies, though.
I've seen it. I've heard of all those movies.
Okay, good. you didn't buy the cheap 4K steelbook of Lawrence of Arabia when that went on sale?
Cheap. How cheap was it?
It, it was on Amazon like for like $30 at one point.
No, that's more than I'll pay for a 4K.
It was a 4K steelbook though.
I don't care about steelbooks though.
Okay. And it's a double disc. It's a double 4K.
Meaning
'Cause
like
it's
they
so
split
long.
the movie in two.
Yeah, the movie's just too long to be put on one 4K disc.
Nice. That's awesome. I mean,
right,
I
well-
keep waiting for them to put it like in a normal case and making it like $10. Then I'll buy it.
Well, it's a pretty cool look. If I could will it over here with the force, I would show it to you right now. It's a
Okay.
pretty cool looking steelbook. Anyway,
Nice.
but we're not here to talk about Lawrence of Arabia. We're here to talk about Brief Encounter.
All right.
So this is a movie about it takes place or it's set in 1945. It was made in 1945. It's about a bored housewife named Celia Johnson
Mhm.
who is married, has a child, stays at home, like does the shopping, all those things. Her husband works in business in some way, shape, or form. And her marriage is fine. There's nothing wrong with her life. It's completely fine life. If anything, it's uneventful. And once a week, she takes the train into the city to do her shopping.
Mhm.
And one day, she just happens to encounter this charming doctor in the city. And they kind of have like, I guess you call them meet cute, right?
Mhm.
Spend some time together and then go their separate ways. And then the next week, she takes the train in again. And again, he's there in the city. And they start spending more time together and have lunch together. And then slowly every week that she takes a train in, their relationship starts getting more and more involved and deeper. Not necessarily sexually romantic, but definitely emotionally romantic.
Mhm.
And what's surprising about this movie was the presentation. Because I was expecting this. This is another list movie. It's like it's on a ton of lists. It's a well-regarded movie. I was expecting it to be kind of like a His Girl Friday kind of movie, like a lot of like fast talking, Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn back and forth dialogue.
Mhm.
And it is not that kind of movie at all. Like it is a much more solemn and dramatic movie. The presentation of it's essentially a flashback where the wife is sitting in the living room with her husband, and in her head, she is confessing this affair to her husband. She's kind of explaining the whole thing. So her explanation to her husband is kind of the explanation to the viewer, and then you're seeing everything happening on screen as she's narrating it. And I was not expecting that presentation whatsoever. And I thought that was very interesting to give kind of this side of the story. It's just her perspective. Like we never know what's in the head of the doctor. We don't know what's in the head of her friends that she meets. We only like know what she's thinking throughout this whole affair. On top of that, this movie is populated with these side characters who are not necessary to the plot whatsoever, but they just give the world a little bit more lived in feeling. This takes place in England, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that.
Mhm.
So like the train station that she meets this doctor at has like a woman who runs the tea cart. And throughout the movie, like the woman who runs the tea cart has a conversation with this security guard. Has nothing to do with this romance plot whatsoever, but just the fact that like these characters are given lines and personalities and kind of have their own little story arc as this romance is going on, just gave this movie that much more life to it. And I was just enthralled by this movie. I would definitely say that like romance dramas are not my favorite genre
Sure.
of movie whatsoever.
Uh-huh.
And I've seen a lot of like fast talking American rom-coms from this era. And this is a completely different movie.
Cool. It looks like by the screenshots, it kind of looks like a noir.
It definitely is shot like a Hitchcock movie
Mhm.
in that sense. Yes. Yeah.
Cool. I'm into it. This is a talkie, right?
Oh, it's very much a talkie, but
There's
it's
a lot of talking.
yeah, but it's organic. Like you really see this relationship, like you buy these two people as falling in love slowly and having kind of this cute affair, which then becomes more and more involved as time goes on.
Cool. I'm into it. All right. My number one, I was also into quite a bit. This was
Quite a bit.
another movie that I've mentioned on the podcast, but I don't remember why it came up. But I'm
Okay.
going to mention it again. This is Boiling Point from 2021.
Yeah.
This
You
is
have
a-
mentioned this.
This is a British drama about a restaurant, like a 5-star Michelin or 3-star. I don't remember how many stars Michelin restaurants get, but
Well, would you like me to mansplain Michelin stars to you?
sure.
Okay. 1 Michelin star is incredibly impressive.
Right.
2 Michelin stars for a restaurant is astoundingly impressive.
Okay.
And 3 Michelin stars is so incredibly rare that there's only a handful in the world.
By handful, you mean like less than 5?
I can't give you an exact count. I can look it up while you talk about boiling points.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't remember if it even had 1. It's just like a
Okay.
really highly it's fine dining place type of thing.
Mhm.
It's the type of place that has like 20 tables at most type of thing. Maybe not even that. Maybe more like a dozen. But anyway, so this guy, played by Stephen Graham, he is like the head chef. And they are kind of in dinner prep when the movie starts. And you're kind of moving from him to the other people who are prepping things, and you're just getting little bite-sized pieces of information, no pun intended,
Mhm.
about like all the people that work in the kitchen. And then at some point, the camera kind of moves out to the wait staff, and then you get bite-sized information about some of them, and then you go back to the kitchen. And the camera itself is presented completely as one take.
Yeah, you have
And-
mentioned this. Yes.
Right. So it's told in real time, basically like an hour and a half or so
Mhm.
of like right before they're about to open to like an hour and a half into them opening. I think there might be like a little bit of truncating of time because at some point mid film, I believe it goes black for a little while and
Okay.
then comes back. So I think there is like some time missing in the middle. It's not completely like one take from beginning to end, but from my ability to tell, the sections that are presented as one take are
Mhm.
actually one take.
Are real oneers.
I believe that's true.
Okay.
I don't know that that's true, but I believe that's true. There's no like panning to the wall, you know what I mean, and then
Or
panning
like
back and you're
pushing
like,
into a coach or something like that.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was
None of those
definitely
tricks.
none of that. That doesn't mean
Okay.
they couldn't figure out other ways to do it, but the obvious ways were not detectable to me.
Mhm.
Anyway, I really liked it. It totally reminded me of that show on FX.
The Bear.
It reminded me of The Bear
Yep.
in good ways, where it's
Yep.
kind of like the people who work in kitchens are personalities for sure, and there's lots of personalities in this, and there's like a central issue where like he's having issues with his ex-wife, or maybe they're not quite divorced yet. They're like married and have marital issues or whatever. So he's getting these phone calls over the course of the night that's like playing out this story that's happening outside of the restaurant.
Mhm.
And meanwhile, stressful things are happening inside the restaurant. And it's like him trying to manage these two pressures at the same time. And then meanwhile, the woman who runs the front of the house has the same kind of thing going on where she's like, things are falling apart during the service for her,
Yeah.
the front of house. And yet she's also has these issues that are like bigger than just her job type of thing. And so you're getting glimpses of that throughout. And it just does a really good job of not only presenting real people doing a real job,
Mhm.
but also manages to cram in just enough details to where all of these people feel real. So it's
Yeah.
like presented in a real way, and also the people felt real because they're giving you just enough information for you to believe that they are fully fleshed out. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
they're not just characters in a movie. you're being dropped into like a living, breathing, working kitchen. When in reality, they did it 4 times. They ran through the sequence 4 times.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if they just took the best of the 2 halves or yeah, I don't know. But it started as a short film. Then they made the movie. The movie was so well received that now they're making a TV show out of it.
Oh, okay. Well, and I'm sure with the success of The Bear also, they're
It probably
capitalizing on
doesn't
that.
hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the BBC. So I don't know if we'll get it here. I mean,
Yeah, I wonder if the stream
you
will
and
get
I will
rights to it or
watch it
something.
one way or another, but
We'll find a way.
right.
We'll
But-
get through Zach TV.
You got it. But yeah. Anyway, it was really good. And if you like oneers or movies with long oneers or just good acting or movies that put you in a place that like I can't think of a movie that made me feel more like I was in a kitchen.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I used to work at Pizza Hut. And obviously not the equivalent of working
Not the
at a
same. No.
Michelin restaurant, but it was me and a manager and another cook and a dishwasher. And I know how much we squabbled and what it kind of felt like working
Right.
shoulder to shoulder with somebody. And that's the vibe I got from this movie. You know what I mean? On some
Yeah.
level. And yeah, the ability to do that is one of the reasons why I like movies. And that's why it's my number 1.
I do want to watch this movie with Megan.
Ab-
She did work in a restaurant here in Madison. It was at the time it was one of the best restaurants in the city.
Nice.
And it was, I mean, she learned a ton, but it was also a stressful job working in a restaurant. So
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see if she would like this movie or if she would like get PTSD from
Sure.
being. I mean, she likes The Bear, so I
Mhm.
feel like she would also enjoy this movie. But it could be, an hour and a half or 2 hours of just like intense restaurant might be a lot too. Who knows?
Sure. Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's definitely an intense drama. Yeah. It's high pressure and yet nobody's going to die.
Right. It's just but you also feel like these people want to get the food out. They want to do a great job.
Right.
And there's the pressure of if we mess this up, like people have high expectations of us. We got to get
Like,
this done.
They're all under pressure, right? But
Right.
they're like
Yep.
different pressures. And like the front of the house person has like a different agenda than like the chef does.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like the front of the house person has to give like a perfect guest experience. And that doesn't always match up with what's going on in the kitchen.
Correct.
The
Yes.
priorities of what's going on in the kitchen. So anyway, it's great though. Check it out.
I do. I also want to let you know that there are around 100 3-star Michelin restaurants in the world.
Okay.
So
So more than a handful.
more than a handful, but 3 stars is the highest you can get.
Okay.
And 100, I mean, like think of the entire world. There's only 100 3-star restaurants.
Sure. It's
So-
not many, but it's not a handful.
No. So I was maybe overstating the rarity of
Sure.
the 3 stars. But
Another thing I watched, but it's not a movie, so
Okay.
like I wouldn't put it on my list because that's heresy. Is a TV show called Jury Duty. Have you heard of this?
oh, is this with James Marsden?
Yes.
Yes, I'm familiar with this show. Yes, I haven't actually
I-
seen it, but I've
I
heard
thought it sounded dumb, and then I started watching it, and it's really, really good.
Is it-
I laughed so much
Okay,
through this, which is weird because it's a reality show.
right? Yeah,
You know, it's
It-
like
it's like
Joe
there's like
Schmo.
yeah, there's one guy on the jury who's just a regular person, and they think they're in a real jury box. They don't realize it's all fake. Correct?
It's like reverse Borat,
Okay, yeah.
where it's like everybody's an actor, and then there's one guy at the center who's not. Whereas with Borat, it's like Borat's the actor, and everybody else is
Right.
normal people. And then, it's like 6 to 8 episodes of them going through an actual jury trial where everybody is an actor except for one guy on the jury. And at the end of it, they reveal to him that, everybody's an actor. But James Marsden plays James Marsden
Right. Yeah.
in it. And he's hilarious in the show, but also like some of the other actors they got to be in it, who I'd never seen before were awesome as well. And most of the time the humor comes from those actors and not necessarily even like the guy they're duping's reaction or anything. They're just funny people who can improv, basically. And James Marsden is funny in it as well. He wasn't the funniest part of it, but it was funny that 1, he even agreed to do it,
Right. Yeah.
and 2, seemed to really embrace it.
And is he playing like an a-hole version of himself or something along those lines? Or
Oh yeah,
yeah,
he's
of course,
he's
yeah.
playing like every cliche of like a big name Hollywood actor you could imagine.
Who's-
Maybe not the spoiled part, but like the not a whole lot going on upstairs part.
Mhm.
And like a little self-absorbed without being problematic about it, essentially. It's good. Yeah, they pick like 2 alternates for the jury, and
Okay.
James Marsden is one of them. And so he's upset because it's kind of like not getting the role.
Oh, he's an alternate. He's not even a real juror.
He's not even a real juror, and yet he has to still go there, and he's like, this is silly.
Yeah.
know?
Is
all
that
these other
streaming
people-
somewhere?
Yeah, it's free on Amazon. You don't
Okay,
even need
Amazon.
a Prime subscription. You know what they're starting to do, which is kind of pissing me off, and then we'll go. Amazon is taking certain shows that I'm pretty sure would have been Prime and commercial free and putting it on their free with commercials service.
Oh, so you can't watch them on
Even
Prime
if you have
anymore.
a Prime account, you have to watch it with commercials.
Oh, that's annoying.
Right.
What's the point of Prime then?
The point of Prime is like you can still watch their other stuff without commercials, but I think there's certain shows that they could just as easily make commercial free that they're like, no, we're just gonna make a few more money even off the Prime
That's-
people.
That's I have prided myself in my removal of commercials and ads from my ecosphere the last couple of years. I really don't want to jump back into
I know.
that.
But I think they knew they had a hit on their hands and they wanted to promote their free with commercials.
Oh, so
service.
it's not on Prime. It's on Amazon.
I mean, it's on
commercial.
Prime as in you can go to Prime and watch it, but there will be commercials.
Then that's not Prime. I got
Right, because it's technically Freevee, which is
yes.
their, free with commercials. But you could have no Prime account and watch it the exact same way as Prime people.
I'm sure there's a way to get it without commercials.
There is. I'm just saying, if you want to get it the way it's presented to you normally, you have to watch commercials, which kind of sucks because it was produced by Amazon and
Yeah.
released by Amazon, and they could have just as easily been like, if you're a Prime member, no commercials, and you can also watch it for free if you're not a Prime member with. But they didn't do that. They were like, everybody's got to watch commercials.
They're starting to realize, maybe subscribers doesn't make us money. Maybe we need to do something
Oh,
else.
the video service was a loss leader a long time ago.
Prime was okay.
Yeah, Prime is just like another benefit.
Or Prime Video, we should
What
say.
they want is they want you to go to the website. They want you to live at Amazon, basically.
Yeah.
And so video just kept people on the website. Hopefully they got used to Amazon. They trust Amazon. They order more from Amazon. So that they've never made money off Prime Video. But I think they're realizing that they could
Right. So we
With
could make
ads.
money off this thing.
with ads. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Cool.
If you want something funny to watch, it's the closest thing I can imagine to like not real, but a weirdly staged version of The Office or Parks and Rec.
You had me 50% there.
I'm just saying, like, the comedy is very much like they're being recorded by a
Right.
documentary
A secret film crew. Or is it secretly filmed or like do they know they're being filmed? Does the Joe Schmo know he's being filmed through like a documentary or something?
The Joe Schmo knows he's being filmed for a documentary.
Okay, all right.
But there's far more cameras around than he thinks.
I'm sure there's a lot more hidden cameras and things like that. Okay,
Right.
interesting.
Exactly.
Okay.
And a lot of the comedy is on like characters looking at the cameras, and you know what I mean? Like it is that style of comedy.
Don't ruin the show for me, James.
Workplace comedy.
You've convinced me. I'm going to see it.
All right. Anyway, thank you for joining us for this fantastic episode of the Cinereelists.
Always the best.
We appreciate your listenership. Don't forget, there's a video version of this podcast on YouTube. Go check it out, youtube.com/Cinereelists. You could also follow us on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Get extra after show audio, as well as other Cinereelist swag if you support the podcast. You could also leave us an Apple Podcast review. That's free, 5 stars only, or send us a listener email to heyguys@cinereelists.com, REEL with an S on the end. You could also follow us on social media on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok @Cinereelists, or follow me on my personal Letterboxd or Twitter account @YoJRB.
You can find me on Letterboxd @PeterSKB.
We will be back next week, probably with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, but maybe something else.
It's summer. We're really taking this week by week.
We are, for sure. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time. Until then, keep it
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.